and welcome to Happy You Ask, the podcast where we explore a little thing called happiness and one awkward conversation at a time because I'm awkward. And I am Erin Clare, your somewhat fearless host. And today I have with me Dr. Caleb Lack, who is a professor of psychology and the counseling psychology MA program coordinator at the University of Central Oklahoma. A licensed clinical psychologist, Dr. Lack specializes in the treatment of children and adults with anxiety disorders and obsessive-compulsive and related disorders, such as chronic tics, Tourette syndrome, and how'd you do this to me? Trichotillomania. Is that
I was
close?
just going to see if you were able to pronounce all the words. I put every hard one that I had into my bio.
Here's the other one. Excoriation. How was that?
Excoriation. Yep. Yep.
He is regularly consulted for and interviewed by national and international media outlets, including New York Times, The Atlantic, and more. Hope the Boston Globe. Dr. Lack is also a best-selling author or editor of 8 books on topics from OCD to critical thinking and pseudoscience to racism and sexism in early psychology. He has authored more than 70 scientific publications relating to the assessment and treatment of psychological problems such as obsessive-compulsive disorder, Tourette syndrome, pediatric mood disorders, and post-traumatic stress. This is a lot of words you gave me. An internationally sought after clinical trainer and consultant, Dr. Lack has conducted workshops for clinicians across North and South America, Europe, and East Asia. Welcome, welcome to Caleb Lack. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate you having me on, and we'll see how embarrassing I get.
Oh, hopefully plenty. So let's start then with you, Dr. Lack. Can you describe a moment when you felt truly happy?
Yeah. For me, a lot of my happiness, and I'm sure is related to why I do what I do, is seeing other people, do things, right? Enjoy things, have fun. And so two things kind of instances I think of right offhand. One is last fall with my son, Lucian. And Lucian's a big music fan. If he was not actively having to listen to someone else say something, he's got music on. And one of his favorite bands, because he's this cool, is King Crimson, which was late 60s, early 70s, 80s progressive rock band. Not what most 16-year-olds are listening to, but
Mm.
it's the kind of the surviving touring members actually put together a show last fall. And I got to take him to this show, and I get to see him watching one of his favorite bands, and then they start playing one of his favorite songs.
Mm.
And Lucian is a very stoic child. You're familiar with this, of course, Aaron.
Yes.
You're familiar with the stoic child. Very stoic. He's really having a great time, but you wouldn't know it looking at him. And then this song comes on, and, you see his face kind of light up a little bit, and then he leans over in the middle of it to me, and he goes, "This may be the greatest moment of my life." And just
Oh boy, after my own heart.
yeah, just like the happiness, just the
Mhm.
joy welling up inside of me because I was able to take him to do that thing, right? I was able um, to give him that opportunity that was bringing him so much joy and so much happiness.
I
Uh,
love that.
that was one that just popped up kind of immediately.
I will interrupt you, just tell you that I love that story so much because I think I had one of those moments. I just saw Hozier at Fenway, and and he played a cover of Van Morrison's Sweet Thing. And
Oh, okay.
I know, and I was like, the perfect moment is now. It's now. Yes. So I feel you, Lucian. I feel you.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
said you had two. What was the other one you
Well,
thought of?
the other one that popped up for me, kind of immediately was my partner Sarah, and I took her on her first international trip 3 years ago. We'd been together about 2 years. And she'd never flown out of the country, and she'd never been to like a beach, like a real beach, on the ocean. And so I was speaking down in Colombia, And so we went to Colombia, to Cartagena. And as part of, one of the days, we went out to one of the islands, Isla Bomba. Uh,
Cool.
and she had like just the best time, like she's just running around, like exploring the beach, like poking things with sticks. And she keeps coming back and, showing me these things that she's found in the water or in the little cave or wherever. And just, on her, just this kind of, again, pure joy, right? Like just having the best time. Um, and I'm sitting there drinking rums and cokes and trying not to get sunburned, and just having the best time, watching her have the best time, right? So that kind of like that happy, that joy. Those are two moments that just kind of in the last couple of years just really stood out to me.
I love that that when people have that sort of childlike joy and they're just like, oh, look at
Hmm.
this and look at this. It is something there's so that magic of that just it ripples out into like
Yeah,
everyone around them when people feel that way. I love it. I love that.
just that
I like those. Those are good answers.
unadulterated glee, right?
That's
And it's just
right.
like, yes, that's what.
Especially when it's something simple, like look at this jellyfish. Oh my goodness, right? That's the coolest. Where it's just like, did you see that cloud? Oh my gosh, right? I love that. Love that.
Right, right, yeah.
And now, do you think that happiness, though, is it the same as like pleasure or contentment? Is there a difference, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think content is certainly different than happy. Um, and pleasure isn't always necessarily related to being happy, right? So I could feel pleasure in, completing a task, right? Like at work, yeah, as you know, like paperwork and things like that. Like I'm not happy when I get our reaccreditation paperwork done.
Woo!
But I'm like that's pleasureful to have it out of the way, but I'm not like, yay, I'm happy. It's more like, oh, thank God that's done. Right. Like finally it's out
Yeah.
of the way. And I think content, to me, content is sort of optimal baseline where we should be most of the time.
Hmm.
Right. I think when we have people sort of like chasing happiness, let's say, um, you're going to be disappointed a lot, right? And it's like, well, that maybe that gave me a small little hint or hit of dopamine or
Mm,
pleasure, right, or enjoyment. But then if I'm always trying to chase that next thing, am I really happy, right?
mm,
Uh, and for me, like that content is kind of that norm, right? And then you have incidents that happen that take you maybe up or down from content. Um, which can be great, can be wonderful. But if you're trying to stay above that all the time, right, above the content,
mhm.
we have clinical terms for that, right? Like hypomania or manic.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, just like we have those folks who are staying too far below content all the time, depressed, right? Uh,
Mm,
and so I think that, they're not necessarily all the same thing, right? Like if you have lots of pleasure in your life, you may be happy, but you may not be happy because you're just seeking that pleasure instead of enjoying living, right?
mm.
Which I don't think is really the same thing. Uh,
And that's maybe that's why, as you know, I'm sure the hip term for describing the sort of idea of happiness, which seems too high up, right, is flourishing, right? That's what
mhm.
been the
Yeah,
hip term where, things are going well and they will go well in general, right? You're on a track and you know how to flourish as a human being. It doesn't mean that every moment's going to be woo, right? But you're
right.
flourishing as a person. Because when we discuss these concepts of like happiness or joy, people put them way up high, like these sort of ecstatic moments, which you can't have that all the time or you got an issue going on, right?
Right. You're probably going to get medicated, it turns out.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
something happening with you, and you're
yeah.
probably annoying everybody around you too, at the
Right.
same time
Right.
being that damn happy, you weirdo. So
Yeah. Because it's
that
not
begs the
it's not our default state, right? Our default state is
no.
not to be just
Well,
pure
mine is to be
joy and
annoyed,
happy.
but But
Yeah.
that does lead to that key notion, like within happiness, then, if our goal is sort of like this flourishing idea, right? A contentment level that doesn't suck. What role of suffering or hardship, those types of negative emotions, what role do they play in this experience of life?
Yeah. So if I'll give it seem like a weird maybe example at first, but bear with me. So I'm a super taster. I don't know if you know this about me,
Oh
Aaron.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a
I'm
super
not
taster.
one, thankfully.
Yeah. So I have way more taste buds per square inch than like 99.5% of the population. Um, and so, for me, I only know that because I know that things that are bitter are horrific to me, right? So,
Mm.
uh, dark green vegetables, right? Like kale or dark spinach or something like that. I can take a bite and I'm instantly transported into a small green hell, right? It's just like, oh, this is horrible. This is awful. Um, on the other hand, when I, take a bite of a Snickers or something, it's just like, oh, hey, how about that? That is pretty darn good. But if I only had Snickers to eat all the time, would it still actually be that good? Right? Like, would I know what normal food tastes like? Would I know what the extreme for me, like the bitters and the things like that, tasted like? No, I wouldn't. So I probably wouldn't appreciate them very much.
Yeah, yeah. But how does that
And so,
relate to things like, oh, keeping up with the news or something like that, most of which is just horrific, right? At
sure.
least the way it's presented, it's all like, and then this terrible thing has happened, and this is awful, and this is awful, and everything's too expensive. How do we how do we navigate that within our society and still maintain some, level of contentment when we just set it to the side and it's like, ah, it's not me. What do we do with all that?
Yeah, this has been a big shift, not just in our lifetimes, although it certainly has shifted a lot, right? But in, let's say, the last 200 years. Um, so 200 years ago, if you and I are talking, it's probably because we live in the small same area, right? Um, Maybe every once in a while, if I'm a fancy person who actually knows how to write and read, I'm sending letters to people elsewhere, right? But this is small, small percentage of the population, which means I don't know what's going on elsewhere because it's not impacting me, right? It's not affecting me. Like it has literally no bearing on my life. What's happening sometimes even 20 miles away, right? Let alone
Mm,
200, 2,000 miles away from me. Now, we've gone, in you and I's lifetime from, let's say, 30 minutes of news twice a day that everybody tunes into, and it's pretty calm, steady, right? Like, here's what's going on, here's what you probably want to know to keep informed. And that, 30 minutes, 45 minutes a day.
mm,
Uh, Now, how many 24-hour news channels are there, right? How many websites are there that are constantly updating? How many different ways are there to find out what's happening anywhere in the world? And how much of that is negative? How much of that
mm,
is bad news, right?
mm,
Almost all of it that you see. But how much of it actually impacts you, right? How much of it has anything to do with you and your life that you're living? Very little. But your emotions don't know that. I see this terrible disasters happen that hasn't occurred to anyone that I know. And it's not in a place I've ever been or ever will go. But I'm still processing it in the same way as if you and I are in the same village, right?
mm,
And you're telling me, here's this bad thing that's happened, right? That's going to have a big impact on me, right? Imagine if disasters befell our village every single day and we all got to hear about it all day.
mm, mm.
We have this kind
We
of
better
idea,
move. That village
right? Like
sucks.
this is a terrible village, right? It's like the villages in those British murder mysteries that my daughter
Right.
watches, where like everyone's dying all the time.
Like Murder, She Wrote. Could you just get away from her?
Like Angela, like we got to send her somewhere else, right? But we've not evolved to have access to that kind of information. or
Mm,
that
mhm,
that sheer amount of information, let alone the sheer amount of negative information all the time.
yeah.
Because we're naturally, almost all of us, we have been for hundreds of thousands of years focused on negatives when they're in our environment
Mm,
because it indicates there's danger. Something I need to do to make sure that I don't die, right? So I can keep living, I can keep taking care of the people around me, but that's just around me, right? That's around me. And now everything's around me. This idea of like a global village that we talk about now. It's like, right, but is it really happening to me? Do I need to know? Or is that negatively impacting me? And in
mm,
almost 100% of cases, it's negatively impacting, right? And we know that from tons of psych research now on mental health. We know from, you know, adults and kids, like it's not good. It's not good to have that sort of fire hose of negativity and terribleness, just all the time. So
100%.
yeah,
I
most
really
of
like
my
that
clients,
concept
yeah,
of that we haven't evolved to
yeah,
that point where we can deal with that information that we have. Like our brains are still like bear killing me immediately, right?
yeah.
And I hadn't thought about it that way as really an evolutionary um, perspective. That's really cool. I like
It's a
that.
mismatch, right? Like it's a mismatch. Even something like, let's say, social media, and you're going on there and you're looking at these pictures of all these people who, one, you don't know, right? And two, you never interact with, but somehow they're part of your world. And my world's gone from, 100, people that I might interact with similarly regularly to it's everyone, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And now I'm not just hearing the negative things, but I'm seeing all their things that seem so much better than my things. And
Hmm.
oh, they look so much better. Or oh, look at that vacation they did, or blah, 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 blah. And you get this really skewed view of reality because you're not seeing the other side, right? You're not
Yeah.
seeing what their life is actually like. You're seeing this sort of curated highlight reel, like watching a basketball game versus watching the highlights, right? Like those are
Yeah.
two very
Yeah.
different things. And we're not designed to parse that sort of information, and it doesn't work well with things
Yeah.
like feeling content, right?
No, not at all. I just could feel content while I scroll this doom. Oh, doom. I'm content. I mean, that you really have to like be, got something break. Just be like, I feel great with this misery going on in the world.
It's one of the first things I actually ask now in my intakes when I'm seeing patients is how much time are you spending on social media? What sort of media are you consuming?
How
Uh,
like I
yeah,
know at least it's a joke that with some of my friends that the generation above us, boomers especially, like to have the TV on the news because of how it used to be, and now it's just horrifying and traumatic. Like not all day, and then a dog died, and then this happened, and
yeah,
I'm just like, no wonder you're a little on edge there. I'm on edge just sitting near it.
yeah. Well, there's one of my favorite studies looked at how dangerous people think the world is.
Mhm.
And one of the things they found is that those folks who watched fictionalized, right? So not even the news, but right, fictionalized like murder mysteries and like crime shows, the more you watch those, the more dangerous you think the world is.
Yeah,
Even though
yeah.
they're clearly fictional, right? You're still like, man, I guess there's serial killers around every corner. Right? They're just out there all the time. We got to find
All
them.
the
It's
time.
like,
They're in
no,
the
there
Scooby Doo
aren't.
van. It's gonna get you.
Right. Yeah. And it's the same thing, with the news. If I'm constantly bombarded with here's all these terrible things happening, then of course I start thinking, here's all these terrible things that are happening. The world has gone to shit, right?
Yeah.
In
When
reality,
you just walk around
not
your
so
neighborhood,
much.
you're like, yeah, this isn't bad.
Right. You're like, but everywhere else must be horrific,
Yeah, just
based on the
here, this is good.
news.
Or just we can't leave because my neighbor's, of course, probably killing somebody and eating them in his
That's right.
house. So,
Who knows what's going on in that basement over there?
no, sketchy. Did you see his car? Looks dirty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Uh, There seems to be this sort of tension. I don't know if it's FOMO or something like, I need to know what's going on. Like, but, and that's why I do this, because otherwise, if I don't know, I am not an informed person who can help society.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly a lot of people who feel that way, right? Or I would put it slightly differently, which is a lot of people feel like if I don't know what's going on, then I can't protect myself in case bad things
Mhm,
happen,
mhm, mhm,
right? Um, and so if I'm trying to keep up my feeling okay, feeling good, then I have to know about all the bad stuff so I can avoid that. But it turns out most of that bad stuff, the reason it's on the news is because it's extraordinarily low incident things, right? Like, there's a car crash, we see it on the news, right? Do
mhm.
they every day go, all right, here's a list of people who did not crash their car today and how far they drove, and then it's just like 17 hours of
Yeah,
just,
exactly. All the
text.
people were fine. It was very boring. They went to the 7-Eleven, they went back, they went to
They went
Target.
back,
It
it
was
was
fine.
fine, oh, somebody, honked at somebody else, but it wasn't a big deal. Like you don't hear that. You literally news is very low incident things that happen to occur, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Uh, but if that's all you're seeing all the time, you start thinking it is occurring all the time, which
mm.
can have a massive impact on your mental health and your state of, how am I feeling about the world? Which is directly related to things like how content am I, right? How much happiness am I experiencing?
So you focus a lot on anxiety, and is that, at least from my understanding, of course, not all of it, but a lot of anxiety comes from things that are outside of a person's control, that they want to be somehow in their control, that gives them this feeling, right, of anxiety. So, do you do you find if people, stop doing that, stop the doom scrolling, stop all that sort of noise, it helps with anxiety?
It certainly does. I mean, it certainly does because anxiety, there's different ways that it obviously it pops up, but a lot of anxiety is about uncertainty and not knowing, right? So I'm not sure how this or that's going to go. I'm not sure what's going to happen. And if you're planning, like, okay, well, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but here's what I can do to shift this or that thing that's in my control. Maybe you have a little bit of worry, let's say, but you're not worrying all the time because you're taking control of things.
Mhm,
But what so many people are experiencing is, hey, I'm being exposed to all these things that are completely outside of my control that I have zero impact on, but I'm still going to worry about it. Okay, is that useful? Is that helpful? Probably not. Yeah, okay, there's this terrible thing that happened in, let's say India. Okay, where do you live? Well, I live in small town Indiana. Okay, do you know anyone there? No. Okay, does it have any impact directly on you? I don't guess so. Can we acknowledge, yeah, oh, that's awful. I feel bad for those folks. And then you move on, right? Because there's literally nothing in your control that you can do.
mhm,
Or do you start going, oh my gosh, that's awful. That's terrible. Those poor people. And now I'm going to seek a lot of information about this. And I'm going to read about the accident that happened. And I'm going to watch the news for hours. And then the documentary that comes out on Netflix. And then no, like, what's that going to do to actually help you feel better? What's that going to do to improve your life or their life?
mhm.
Nothing, right? So one of the big things that I do for a lot of my patients is we start talking about limits, right? So, you know, 30 minutes of news a day, probably an upper limit for most people in terms of what they need to know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
15 minutes of scrolling on Instagram, right? Or TikTok or whatever, the newest thing that's trying to steal all of your attention. Okay, let's set it. You can have that. But then there's no more. Like that's enough. Just like you wouldn't want to only eat Snickers all day, every day, right?
Mhm,
You don't want to feed your brain junk either because it's going to change how you're viewing the world, right? It's going to change what you think about the world, what you think about yourself, which impacts, my level of feeling, let's say content, or even the ability to experience things like happiness.
Well, what are some things you do personally to sort of maintain that level of, content? Um, I mean, it's different than I'm going to go do something that gives me like joy, right?
Yeah.
What are some practices that you do personally?
So one of the big things that I try to talk about with like my graduate students is this idea of self-care. It's a daily thing, right?
Mhm.
It's not a every special so often thing. I go to the spa and that's my self-care. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, that's great. That's nice. That's the special things you do that might give you that boost, right? Say of happiness. But what are you doing today? What'd you do this morning? What are you doing this afternoon? What are you doing this evening? What in your regular routine gets you there, right? Helps you establish a happy existence. For me, like with news, I don't watch the news. I read The Guardian. Um, I read The Guardian for about 15 minutes in the morning, and I read The Guardian for about 15 minutes in the evening. That gives me all the news that I ever need to know, period. Right? Like that's it.
Yeah.
That's enough. Um, I put limits on my social media use, right? So, 15 minutes on Instagram, 15 minutes on Facebook, and then I really try hard to stick to those
Yeah.
because I know I'm not going to be able to every day, right? Like I run some referral groups and things like that. And so I might have to be on there and doing information or, telling somebody why they're an idiot for doing this instead of that, like we do. Uh, but I try and put those limits, right? And I personally have curated my feeds so that they show me people that I
Mhm.
care about, that I want to know what's going on with, like on Facebook, or they show me on Instagram. It's all artists, right? It's
Mhm.
artists. It's I'm big into comic book art, right? And so it's mostly comic artists and some like fantasy and fine artists. Like that's what I want to see, right? I don't want to see, oh, here's the 38th, super fit person working at the gym.
Oh,
It's just like, okay, I don't give a shit,
good
Aaron.
for them. I don't care.
Like, good, great.
Yeah, no.
But I don't care, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to see that. I want to see a cool drawing of Spider-Man, right? I want to,
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to see a Frank Frazetta, painting. Uh,
Yeah.
and so trying to curate that, I think, is important, those
That's key.
experiences.
And
Uh,
then for me at least, something like by doing that, something like TikTok is actually curated where if there's anything negative, go away. That is my happy time,
right.
right? I want
Get out of here.
nothing that I want to think about too deeply. I just want to laugh,
Yeah.
see some see some artists singing songs. Oh, that's lovely. And then, that's my little happy.
And then we're done. Yeah.
And then we're done. Yeah, and
But
just,
I think those limits are really important. And I think the kind of the curation is important. Because what these companies will do to you is they will steal as much of your attention as they can. And the easiest way to do that is through short, like either surprising or negative things, right? Where
Mhm.
it's like, oh, what's that? Oh, I don't know about that. Oh no, what's that headline, right? Um, and that's so different from our everyday lives, but it sucks us in because it gives us those short, like attention stealing neurological hits, right? Like, oh, that 15-second thing was funny. I should find another 15-second thing that's funny, right?
Yeah, until it's
Or
four
that
hours
was
later.
scary. Bingo, bingo.
Yeah.
So those are some things I do. The other thing I try and do is I try and personally make sure that my life is matching up with what my actual values are,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
What are the things that I really hold important for me? And that's, friends, that's family, that's for me having a mix of brain work and brawn work, right? So having that mix of, yeah, I'm at the university and I'm writing papers and I'm doing all this stuff, but now I'm on the farm and I'm working with my animals, right? Or I go down to my parents' house and I help them out with something. Um, and
You
that
have the best pig
connection.
names. of all time? Can you name them
We're
all?
pretty funny. Sure, sure. So right now we only have four. We have four Kuni pigs, which are a New Zealand heritage breed. Um, so they're small pigs, meaning they're only like 250 to 300 pounds.
Tiny, little.
Tiny little pigs. But we have we'll start off with the elders. So we have two sisters. Their names are Hamantha or Hammy for short. And then her sister Pjork.
Oh, Bjork.
Pjork. Uh,
Mwah.
and then we have their suitor, Christopher Philip Bacon, or Crispy Bacon for short. Um, and then we have one of their children still, Runty, who is a runt, as you might be able to imagine.
Shocking.
And still is, even though she's full grown. She's only about like two-thirds of the size of everybody else.
Oh, I
Uh,
love that.
but yeah, in the past, we have had, Ham Solo and Chew Bacon. They were born on May 4th. So that was
Oh, perfect.
very important for us. Uh, so yeah, we try and have fun, right? We try and have fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
because every time I go outside, I'm like, Hammy, like that's an automatic happiness thing, right? Like it's
Oh,
like
yeah,
my pig is named Hammy.
exactly.
What? Like that's ridiculous, right? Uh,
Exactly. And I think something like for me, and it's not for everybody, but pets or animals in nature, there's so much research on how important it is to be out there, like in nature and
sure.
even just briefly. But then you add that like creatures, they're wonderful. Like little Argy who lives with me, my little Westie. Um, I talk to her nonstop. Like we have full on conversations, and she just looks at me like, right,
Like, oh, sure
yeah,
we are.
whatever, mom. Yeah, nut job. But it brings me such joy to see her react with her little ears and all of that, right? There's just such happiness in that little self who, she doesn't care about the news. She just like, can we, play ball or go to sleep? Can we take a nap?
Right. Right.
She's got it down pat, right? Let's play or let's rest. Oh, you got to work, then I'll rest, right? That's weird
And
form of resting you do.
it's like, that's okay. I'll take a nap while you rest in this way on the computer, I guess. I don't know.
Exactly, you weirdo. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So if you
oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think, for so many people now, their pets, right, have become these huge parts of their family because unfortunately, a lot of us are very isolated compared to where we were, even something like 20 years ago, right, as a
No,
society.
100%. Even more so since the pandemic, I'd say.
Hmm. And it's, we need that connection, right? Like we need that social connection. Even our, let's say stoic, more introverted children, they still need some social connection, right? It may not be the same
Yeah.
level as David, for example, maybe a little of an
Mhm.
extrovert,
Oh,
uh,
yeah. Little.
just a little bit. Uh, but they still need it, right? And so I think a lot of people, they're getting on social media in part because they want to feel connected, right? Or they're spending so much extra time and attention with, non-humans because they still want that connection. Uh,
Mhm.
we're even seeing this with things like, chatbots and kind of the generative AI LLMs, is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like people are seeking that connection and it's so important and they're trying to get it however they can because they're not getting it in the traditional ways that we have gotten it.
Yeah, I saw an advertisement for something like an AI journal where you write to it and it writes back to you. And I'm like, that's interesting, but also a little distressing.
Yeah,
It means
maybe make a
you don't
friend.
feel like you have anybody to talk to.
And I mean, it's really, there have been a lot of research on this kind of epidemic of loneliness, right? Which impacts things like how happy we are and our level of contentment and flourishing. Um, it's hard to be flourishing, if you're lonely and you're isolated and you don't have that connection that you want. Um,
And it's harder and harder, it seems, to, you know, make connections for people. I saw some articles about, especially um, Gen Z, were like really having a hard time being able to connect to people. And they connect constantly online, Discord, things like that, but face to face, it's really hard to do that. And I don't think it's easier as an adult, especially if you do live actually in a city. It's hardest, it seems to be there, the more people, because then we all isolate and we only have our little routes that we go. And actually making connections to other people is tough. What do you think? What are some tools to combat that, do you think? Some practices?
Yeah. I mean, one kind of first is to figure out like, who do I want to connect to? Right. And is it cool if we don't all have the exact same level of interest in something? Because
Mm,
one thing that I see for a lot of people is they think that like I need to find people just like me. Like, okay, so somebody who has your exact same interest profile and demographics and likes and dislikes, like you're never going to find that, right? So when I connect to people, I understand that I may not connect to everything, right? You may be my friend that I go to the concerts with. They may be my friend that I go to the ball game with. They're my friend that, we get together and cook, and that's my friend that does X or Y. And realizing like people can serve different purposes for each other, right? You don't have to have this like all-encompassing, here's the one, or here's my two
mhm.
people, right? That fulfill all of my needs. I think that's a big problem that we've had both in romantic relationships and friendships both now is there's that pressure to like be everything, right, to somebody. Like, no, that's fine. I've got friends that I would not in any way, shape, or form call and say, hey, would you come over here and help me out with this thing on the farm? Then I've got
Yeah,
other
they'd be like, "Who
friends.
are you
Yeah, they'd be
talking
like,
to?"
no, no, I
Yeah,
won't.
that's not me. No, I will not do that for you. Thank you.
Right?
I'll be back with some other request some other time.
Great. And I call them and I say, hey, do you want to go see this, concert at the Jazz Lab? And they're like, absolutely, let's do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so I think, finding out like what is it that I want to do and who is it that I want to do those things with. And then you have to put the freaking effort into it.
That's the part. You were fine. And then it was like, okay, now I gotta do this thing where I gotta
Now
talk
I
to
got to do
strangers,
it.
and that sucks. Ugh.
Now I got to put myself out there. I got to
Ugh.
face potential rejection.
Ew.
Uh, I'll just
Just
stay
stay at home with my
home and
dog.
talk to my AI
Talk to my
dog,
Westie.
and my AI dog, not even a real dog anymore, right? Like it's just gonna be on my screen. Uh,
Yeah, I gotta like get in the car or take the train and do, oh, that's so much work, Caleb.
yep.
Ugh.
And
Just to be
it's
content.
it's work. It's work. Being friends is work, right? Like you have to work on relationships. You have to build them first, right? And then you have to maintain them. You can't just be like, oh,
Not being a-hole and all those things, all those things that take work.
it's
It's
much
hard.
easier when you're a child, right? And you're like, are we in the same general space together and interested in Transformers? Turns out we're
Yeah,
best
let's
friends.
ride bikes. Yay.
Yeah, like we do that.
Or just go over to their house. You want to play?
You're right.
Right?
Yeah,
Someone
I think
showed up at my house and said that, I'd be like, get the police.
that.
It was,
But maybe you
that's
shouldn't be.
creepy.
Maybe you should be like, sure, like what, let's do something, right? Like let's do
Have
something.
you met me? There is no way in hell someone shows up at my door, let's play, that I'm A, answering the door, B, playing with that weirdo who knocked on my door. But,
But
if they arrange ahead of time and we have a plan,
a little bit of plan maybe.
let's
But
hang out. Let's do a
but
thing.
I mean, I part of that honestly, like I think goes back to the, your media exposure. And, you
Mhm.
know, 50 years ago, your children would be gone all day playing in the neighborhood and you didn't know where the hell they were. Like I did
That
that,
was my youth.
right? Like I'd be gone on the four-wheeler for hours and hours, Lord knows where, right? How many
Nope.
miles from
Nobody
home.
knew. Nobody knew but
Uh,
me.
but now everyone's scared, right? All these terrible things that are going to happen, and all these murderers and kidnappers running around. It's like, they're really not, though.
But at the same time, I mean, there's certain, tendencies that we have. I mean, even back in the 80s, I was this way. I was like, I am not going to make friends with stranger danger over there. There's no way in hell. No. So, I mean, at the same time, that's my own sort of way of reacting to the world too, is I'll sit
Sure.
back and wait and be much pickier. So yes, it is part social media, but part's also just it's hard to do these things. It's hard at the human experience to put yourself out there and risk rejection and do all that stuff just to make a friend who may be a jackass.
But they may end up sucking, and then you go, well, it turns out that one didn't work, right? On to the
Get a new
next
one.
one.
Yeah,
Right. On to the
exactly.
next one. But that is also part of the problem, I think, with for most of us, we're living in these huge, huge communities, right? And so we feel like we can be even more picky, right? Be like, yeah, I didn't like this thing about that person. So
Mhm.
it's like, okay, but what about the rest of them? What about the rest of the person? Nobody's perfect, right? Whereas when we were all living in smaller communities, it's like, well, I don't really care for these parts of them, but
Look at the pool of fish.
yeah, it's
That's
like,
the best
well,
fish.
I got five options, right? So that's fine.
I'll make do. We'll be okay. Be good.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
you're right though, and this is answers a lot of like why there's such issues with dating within millennial and younger generations
yeah.
because yeah, it's just like all right, 75% of this person's pretty good, but that other 25% is absolute crap. And as if all of us are pretty much like that, right? All of
Right.
us, we
If
have
we're lucky,
really
we're
crappy parts.
75% good,
That's a
right?
really good
Like,
person.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a catch. If you're saying that to yourself, hey, out there, that's a winner. 75% not sucking,
hey,
take them. So
Meatloaf told us years ago, right? Two out of three ain't bad.
that's right.
That's not
But I
bad.
won't do that. I won't do that. So if you
But
could
yeah,
like
too
design
much
a,
choice.
yeah, if you
Too
could
much choice.
design a society for happiness, it'd be Caleb Black's world, this utopia. Then, because utopian societies always work out, right? They're great. But
They
if you could, they
never go
never
bad.
ever,
Yes.
what would it look like?
So, I think what we have to start with is we would have to start with like what in society has actually worked well for us throughout our history, right?
Mhm.
Um, and there's lots of really cool research at this point about like where and how do people flourish, right? How do we see humanity flourishing better? One of those things is having much higher levels of equity, right? So much lower levels of gap. Not saying that everyone has to be 100% the same, right? But equitable situations where
Mhm.
it's not we have the serfs and then the lords in their castle, right? And that's it.
And some people just get to suffer.
Right. And that's their lot in life. It's like, well, that's the lot that you made. It doesn't have to be their lot.
Yeah.
Because we know that the more a society has kind of inequity built into it, the less generally happy its citizens are, right?
Yep. Yep.
Uh, and I think that's really the key that everything else comes out of, right? Whether that's educational initiatives or healthcare or how governance works. Um, is it designed to increase equity or is it designed to decrease equity?
Hmm. Hmm.
And for me, that's something I think about a lot, right? Like equity of access to healthcare, right? So
Hmm.
um, if we don't all have the same level of ability to keep up our physical health, well, then what happens from there?
Yeah.
Right. Turns out you have these huge downstream effects on mental health, right?
Mhm.
On being able to be a productive citizen generally, right? Uh,
Yeah. How can you be productive if you can't if you hurt if you just can't function?
if you can't function, right?
Yeah.
And so I think building in safety nets and kind of that everybody gets at least up to here, and then we'll see where else you go, right?
Yeah.
To me, is an incredibly important thing for building a functioning, happy society, right? Uh, because yeah, maybe somebody has a little bit more than me, but I'm not, completely destitute, right? I'm not seeing this person is in their giant mansion spending $60 million on a wedding, and I'm over here trying to see
feed
what I
tonight.
can do to not starve in the next few days, right? Uh,
100%.
so I think
I,
that equity issue is the biggest thing.
because it seems that there's a couple different ways people get at that towards equity and like different pathways. And one is that, well, equity in some mindsets is everybody has the same ability to achieve goals. And the problem, as we know, with if you study happiness, is that a goal, right, is always in the future. And it's
Right.
something that cannot exist now, right? And if we're just goal driven, which is, of course, what the United States economy is based on, it's capitalism. It's always, you got to get something else, right? You got to get something else and buy. Then happiness is always future and never now. And so it's hard for people who are really have that mentality to see equity any other way as the ability to achieve a goal. So if there's a different way of looking at it that's not goal driven, what are what is that? How are we
Yeah.
going to convince those people that there are other ways?
For me, I think most people actually that have that idea of like, I always have to get more, right? Like growth, right? Always growth, always more. I think that's not a natural state for most people. It's a state that
Hmm.
they've been indoctrinated into, right? You've been told this over and over again that that's the goal, and you're like, I guess that's just the goal, right? But I don't know that most people actually have that as a natural state for them, right?
Hmm.
If you look at kind of most people's lives, are they really wanting to do more all the time, right? Are they really wanting to keep moving forward in terms of like gathering more and more, or is it like this is a societal expectation? Because it's not
Hmm.
that way all throughout the world, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so I think the first, kind of the first thing to think about with like an equity or an equitable society is more of, is everyone having the same opportunities?
Hmm. Hmm.
If I've got a fence that's this high and I have all sorts of people of different heights, and I give everybody just, okay, everyone gets the same ladder or box to stand on. Okay, well, but the tall people now are even taller, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Be like, well, you need a ladder, you need a box. You're freakishly tall, so you don't need anything, right? Um, for me, equity is like, can we all look over the fence, right? Can we all do that instead of like, well, what are you going to do to start growing? Because you're
Yeah,
short, you need to
yeah.
grow, right? You need to get taller to be able to see over that fence. What are you doing about that? It's like
Yeah.
I have no control over my height, right? Like I
Hmm.
can't do that. Maybe you get me
Buy
some
some
tall shoes,
platform shoes.
right? Like let's bump that up a little bit
Yeah. No, you're
instead.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I have one pop quiz question for you.
Okay. Pop quiz.
Yes. What is one of your favorite songs?
What is one of my favorite
I
songs?
know it's one of the word people hate
Okay.
this question.
No, no, no. I've got many. I love music. I love music.
The problem is they hate it because they have too many
Uh,
and they're like, I can't.
yeah. So in terms of something that's gonna get me kind of up and moving, there's two I can think of immediately. I don't know if you'll know either one. You probably will. So the first would be from the Black Keys. Um, I
I
don't know
love
if you
them.
know the
I love
Black
them
Keys.
very well. They're from Cleveland.
Yeah. So this would be Lonely Boy.
I
Um,
love Lonely Boy.
I absolutely love Lonely Boy. It'll get me moving in the kitchen when I'm cooking every time. And then the second one would be DJ Shadow and Run the Jewels with
Hmm.
Nobody Speak.
All right, I'll listen to that one after.
So listen to
I'm
that
gonna go
one.
see the Black Keys this
Oh
summer.
yeah,
Yeah, they're touring again. So and everybody comes to Boston. It's one of the
right.
benefits. So I'm actually gonna see them in New Hampshire because it's a lot cheaper. But but
Sure.
yeah, they are fun. They're one of my like I need to be in a good mood type of bands
Yeah.
too. So we could
Yeah.
jam out. We'll go to a concert sometime and
We'll do it.
um yeah, I'd love to see the Black Keys with you. I'm sure they'll come out that way. Next time we're in Arkansas, maybe we can meet up in
Yeah.
Oklahoma
I'm
and go out to
totally
Tulsa
down.
or something. I'd
I'm
love
totally
to.
down. Yeah.
You see,
Uh,
you'll see Aaron real happy. This is when, for me, one of the things I do to make myself happy every day is I sing. I am terrible at singing. I do not
mhm.
care. It brings me such joy to just every night before bed put on music and sing. And so at a concert, I am the singing fool. I will sing loud. I do not care who's hears me. My children soon learn this is your mother who's very reserved, is not here. And she's going to sing, and if you don't like it, I do not care. And they got into it, and that, now when they're with me, it's like that's what we do. We're going to sing loudly, and it makes everybody happy because it's like
It
sort of like you were saying
does.
with your partner, with watching Lucian.
Yeah.
When, by singing and being like that, I'm helping the universe. I'm making them happy because I'm
100%.
experiencing
Yeah.
pure joy.
One of my favoriteest things, Aaron, is to do karaoke,
Oh
right?
yes.
And so I have graduate parties here for my master students who've finished the program, right? And so we have a big farm party, and we always set up the karaoke. And inevitably, like most of them have never done karaoke before, and they're very, like, oh, I don't know, I'm the bad singer. I'm like, that's the best kind of karaoke,
That's the
right?
best.
You're just having a good time. You don't need to sing well.
Just
You
let
just
it rip. There's no insecurity. Just be like, I know I'm bad. I do not care. And you let it
100%.
go. The freedom. The
And
freedom.
the happiness, right, that these people have when they realize like, oh, I can just enjoy myself, right?
Yeah, I can just let
Uh,
go of all that crap. And
Utterly
I mean,
fantastic.
God love it. It took me decades to learn. Oh, you can just set that crap down. You don't have to carry that around, be insecure. Just sing.
Yes. Yep.
Everybody's happy. Everybody loves a bad singer who knows it.
They do. Yeah. Everybody's clapping. They're happy. We're having a good time, right? Uh,
Which I think is part of our lesson here is that, you know, just be who you are and know it and own it and just be okay with that. Be like, yeah, I'm a little bit neurotic. I'm a little bit weird. It's okay.
yeah. And that's fine, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and that's fine
Mm,
because it turns out anybody can be happy. You just have to, figure out what it is that gets me there, right?
It's 100%. It's not
As
gonna look
opposed
like
to like
mine's not
I
gonna look
have
like
to do what
yours.
everybody else is doing.
No, but everybody should name their pigs what you do. I mean, honestly,
I think the funnier the animal names, the better to me.
100%, 100%.
I
All
see
right,
some of
Dr.
them that
Lack.
are ridiculous, like Claude, and I'm like, that's not a
No, that's not a
no.
pig's name.
Come on
What the
now.
hell?
So
That's rude,
anyway.
rude to the pig. Do you have any final thoughts about happiness? Anything like
Yeah,
related?
I think building your life appropriately is what makes us happy, right? It's
Mhm.
not just these special little one-off moments, right? It's again, it's just like, what am I doing every day, right? Who am I with every day? What am I putting into my brain every day? Uh, and that's the key to health and happiness. It's not like, well, I've scheduled 6 months from now, I'm going to do this. It's like, okay, well, that's great, but you'll be
6
miserable for the
months.
next six
Yeah,
months, right?
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah, it's a daily thing, I think.
Well, that relates to all the other, literature about it. This happiness has to be right now,
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
And you have made me happy.
Oh, well, thank you, Aaron.
It's always, always a pleasure to talk to you, you brilliant mind. Keep helping all those people, training up those new counseling folks. Help this world
Doing
out. Keep doing your thing.
all right. It's good to talk to you, Aaron.
Good to talk to you. Thank you again.
All right.
All right,
Bye.
bye bye.